Hello there, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Duality of Life podcast. My name is Julia, and it's been a hot minute since I recorded one, and I'm feeling a little rusty. I'm feeling a little strange. I haven't, done this in a hot minute, so welcome here to my strangeness. I am being nice to myself in the process, though, because I care about what I do. I care about this show. I care about you. I care about myself, and we're going to be nice to ourselves in the process, and this is the entire podcast. I want to specifically dive into the inner dialogue that we have, our inner voice, and why it's so hard to actually be nice to ourselves. I'm going to talk about and give examples to how certain inner dialogue can be seen or viewed as positive or motivational, or something that's going to push you towards becoming a better person or growing, and actually it's holding you back. So we're going to be diving into all of this today and then giving a solution at the very end, which, if you've been hanging out with me for the last little while, you already know what the solution is going to be. However, I think it's important to continue to address an amazing system that is so important and fundamental in many people's lives to grow and be the best version of themselves, to be well, to be able to connect with people genuinely, to be able to connect with self genuinely. Any doodles, let's dive into this episode. We all have a little voice inside of our heads that's narrating our life or speaking to us in some way, shape, or form. Completely normal part of human life. Some people like to call it the inner voice, but it's going to be referenced in books or literature differently. Some people like to call it self-talk, maybe called inner dialogue, or even automatic thoughts. For the sake of today's video, I am going to be calling it the inner voice. I may flip-flop between some terms, but I think primarily what I have in my head and how I describe it myself is inner talk. Inner voice. What am I saying? Anyways, there are many reasons to why this little voice inside of our head exists. It exists to help us problem solve and self-regulate. It guides our decisions. It allows us to have a back and forth conversation about maybe a different feeling or a different opinion or a different situation, to come to a conclusion, problem solve, and therefore move appropriately in different situations in our lives. So it's very important that we have it. I think it probably is one of the reasons why us as humans are maybe a little bit different than other animals. And it could also even be seen as part of our consciousness. But let's not get too philosophical here. We're trying to mainly view this from like a psychological lens. However, not everyone experiences this inner voice the same. Of course, we all have a different experience in this life, and so it's inevitable that we're going to have different experiences with the inner voice. And it's not like, your inner voice says this and my inner voice says that. It's actually just a different experience. Some people, it's a continuous chatter inside of their head. It's always talking, it's always going on. Other people, it's a lot more calm or quiet and kind of fades in or out. Some people may even have a more experiential inner voice where primarily they may see pictures or visuals, colors and things like that instead of actual language, like this man-made thing that we use to communicate with each other. Some people may have it in a more visual form. But it's very important to note that this inner voice should be felt as an inner experience and a self-led experience. In other words, it's self-generated. If someone experiences this inner voice as external or coming from something or someone other than themselves, it's really distressing or even commanding. This is a different clinical territory, and it's definitely worth seeking professional help to figure out what's actually going on here. So I just really want to emphasize that point, that we all have an inner voice, but if it doesn't feel self-generated, and if it feels external or really commanding and distressing, it is worth seeking professional help on that. So although the inner voice is a completely normal human experience, we have to be aware of how we're experiencing that inner dialogue, that inner voice inside of our heads. For many people, the default inner dialogue is learned from early relationships, usually parental, sibling relationships, close-knit family systems is how we really develop the beginning stages of our inner dialogue. How somebody speaks to us as a child will often perpetuate in some way in our adulthood. So if you're told really positive, uplifting, beautiful, loving, accepting things, you're probably going to naturally have a lot more positive, accepting, self-nurturing mechanisms inside your brain, because that was how your brain was wired from the very beginning. If you experienced lots of trauma, emotional abuse, or abuse of any kind, that inner dialogue may be a lot more harsh and maybe a lot more critical and self-judgmental. Again, it should still feel self-generated and it shouldn't feel external. That's a different territory. Although it may feel really harsh or self-critical, it, of course, is worth getting clinical help for those things because that dialogue often leads to depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders. But it doesn't mean that you're wrong or broken or anything of that nature. It just means that from the beginning stages of your life, you were fed a lot more negativity, if you will, and so therefore your brain is wired in a way that it naturally feeds into those mechanisms more than the positive, self-soothing, comforting mechanisms that somebody in a different upbringing may naturally have. Does not mean you have to judge yourself for that. We are all, unfortunately, a product of our environments in some way. So this inner dialogue can also really be shaped by repeated social conditioning. So if we're experiencing lots of criticism or comparison in early relationships, like adolescent relationships, if we experience bullying, if we experience really harsh teachers or schooling system, we go into a workplace that is really distressing, or universities that are really commanding and critical and things of this nature, this can also really feed into the negative beliefs and harsher dialogue inside of your head. Other things like conditioned approval and emotional unavailability, or some sort of high pressure performance type environment really does feed into these more negative sides of the inner voice. Over time and repeated exposure of those more harsh environments, the brain treats self-criticism as something that's normal and self-kindness as a bit unfamiliar or uncomfortable or strange, or something that you're not worthy of. You're not worthy of somebody else's kindness. You're not worthy of your own kindness. And there may even be a part of you that is unaware that this is happening. It's a bit subconscious, it's suppressed, we avoid it, which again, it's completely normal human coping mechanism that you don't need to feel bad about. No one needs to feel bad about something being suppressed or something being subconscious. Again, it's your brain's way of protecting itself because it doesn't want to feel the reason that they're feeling the pain. The actual core of the reason you're feeling the pain may be a little bit too intense or harsh or scary to look at in the moment that you are in right now. Things take time to unpack, and you need to slowly allow yourself to feel safe again to actually get into the deeper things. So again, the brain will just begin to treat this self-criticism as normal, which is very unfortunate. It's just how the brain is being wired in different circumstances after extended periods of time with harsher environments shaping the dialogue. So the harsh inner critic often does try to be useful, and that's why we often may not recognize it as harmful. It's trying to prevent us from making another mistake. It's trying to control the outcome so that way we don't get hurt again. It's trying to avoid judgment that pokes those sensitive parts of ourselves. It's trying to keep you acceptable or lovable or worthy or choosable from a outside kind of surface level perspective, so that way you can fit in and get the connection or love that we as humans so deeply desire and need to live a well life. So this inner critic will try to mold you and shape you and hide the parts of you that are more vulnerable or sensitive or unacceptable in fear that it won't get the connection and love that it truly desires. The brain can also be trying to reduce uncertainties, so trying to, again, control situations, trying to manipulate people, trying to, and not in a bad way, again, this is a subconscious thing oftentimes. You're not trying to willingly and maliciously manipulate people, but when you're manipulating yourself to be something that you're not, you're then therefore kind of like molding yourself into what someone needs you to be, or kind of molding yourself into what you think you should be. And that's a form of manipulation. We don't have to like make it into some horrible thing where you're now a horrible person because you're manipulating. Like, no. That is not the case at all. Basically, your brain is like a little piece of Play-Doh, and we can try to shape it in one way or shape it in another way. And we're just trying to consciously shape ourselves, or subconsciously, shape ourselves into what we think we need to be. And it's just a form of little Play-Doh manipulation subconsciously to get us to where we want to be, which is loved and connected and worthy and all of the good things. But when we're doing it from the critical place, we're not going to feel fully fulfilled. We're not going to feel fully connected to people. We're not going to feel actually worthy of the love that people want to give us. And we may push away people, we may avoid situations, we may self-sabotage and run away from things that are actually good for us or people that treat us well, because we don't at our core believe that we are worthy of it. So again, the inner critic often just tries to keep you safe, while ultimately doing it in a way that isn't going to feel fully fulfilling. So ultimately, that inner critic is trying to motivate you through threat. So this can create a short-term compliance, but again, it leads to oftentimes a lot more anxiety, depression, other mental health conditions, and just avoidance as well. So you're relating to yourself as a problem to fix or solve or manipulate, to, again, seek the love, seek the connection, seek the relationships that you desperately want, but at your core don't feel worthy of. As you are a human. You're almost dehumanizing yourself, which I will talk a little bit more about later on in the video. It's a really big component of John Bradshaw's work, is this level of believing that you're more or less than human, which just is not a good place to be. You're human, and that's okay, and that's normal, and it's good. It's good that you're human. I like that you're human. So I want to dive into many ways that we speak to ourselves that, again, sound encouraging or sound motivating, sound enlightening, sound useful, sound like we're gonna get to the place we want to be when we say these things, because they have a layer of truth or logic or reason to them. But in actuality, they're just feeding into the little shame monster, the self-criticism monster, the self-judgment little monster inside of our heads that is keeping us away from our true self, our human self. Inner voice quote number 1. I'm a self-aware person. I should have realized what was going on. It makes self-awareness a status that you have to maintain. It makes it as if any moment your self-awareness slips, quote unquote self-awareness slips, it's a failure. So when you miss something, it becomes like, I'm a fraud. I can't believe that this happened. I can't believe I made this mistake. I can't believe I missed that. And again, it's making you believe that you're not human and you're not allowed to make mistakes. It's essentially judging the past you, even if that past you was a day ago, for not having the information that you have today. The only reason you have the information you have today is because you experienced a thing today that gave you the information that you have in this moment. You didn't have that previously. And so we judge ourselves for that. The underlying shame message here is, if I don't predict harm, I deserved what happened. A self-compassionate affirmation, if you will, is, I am human. I am learning. Missing something does not mean that I am broken, wrong, or stupid. Inner dialogue, quote number 2, other people have it worse. Why am I acting or feeling this way? This treats emotions as something that you must earn the right to. You're not allowed to feel this because the most horrible thing hasn't happened to you, because other people are dying in a war, because other people are experiencing worse abuse, because other people are experiencing a worse environment than you. Your feelings are invalid because it's not the most horrible situation that one can have in life. It converts the inner experience that you are having as a morality standoff. And if you decide that pain is illegitimate and you stop sharing it, it actually just makes you feel more disconnected from people, more disconnected from yourself, furthering the self-criticism, furthering the shame-based beliefs and thoughts. And so the more we invalidate our emotions or believe our experiences or emotions are illegitimate, the more we're going to feel and feed into shame-based mindsets because we're not connecting to people on a human level. So the underlying shame message here is, my needs are embarrassing or dramatic, and I'm not worthy of feeling them. A self-compassionate little affirmation is, I'm allowed to feel the way that I do, no matter my circumstances. It's okay. 2 quotes here that have the same energy to them, but slightly different language. There has to be a reason this happened, and I have to find it, or it will happen again. This keeps happening. I need to figure out why so I can stop it. It implies that you need to find the right explanation to guarantee your safety, to guarantee how someone else is going to treat you, to guarantee an outcome, a situation, your dream life. You have to control the situation to get the things that you want. You need to explain and figure out why you're feeling this way or acting this way, or why this keeps happening, or da 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 da. I don't know why I do da 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 all the time when I'm trying to emphasize a continued point, but nonetheless, it subtly suggests that events must be earned or deserved. Your life, the quality of your life has to be earned or deserved, which just slides you into self-blame, self-criticism, and judgment when answers don't arrive, when you can't come to a final conclusion that gets you the outcome that you so desire. It really frames healing from this limited space instead of recognizing it as gradual change, gradual curiosity of the self, and a slow evolution of one's being, just wants answers immediately and needs answers immediately out of a sense of control and urgency that you just don't want to feel the yucky feelings. And so therefore you must figure out the reason, figure out what's going on so you can fix it or stop it. It ultimately makes that pain feel unacceptable unless you convert it into some form of meaning or answer. The underlying shame message here is, if I can't explain something, it means I'm lacking awareness or failing at life or healing. Or if it repeats, it's because I'm weak and not doing the right work. Some self-compassionate quotes for people that struggle with these types of thoughts are, meaning might come later. Right now, I can focus on caring and supporting myself instead of searching for a why. A repeating pattern means it's important and it's deeply wired. We can work on it with steady love and compassion. It's okay that I feel this way. A few more quotes here, all similar meanings and explanations, but slightly different language, because everyone has a different voice, and so we're just trying to pack as much into this video as possible. Number one is, I attracted this somehow. My mindset isn't right. 2, if I were more connected to God, I wouldn't be in this situation. 3, the universe is trying to teach me another lesson and I need to figure it out so this stops happening. These quotes assign blame for events that are often like multi-determined, like we can't control another person's decisions or actions. We can't fix the randomness of life. We can't solve the multi-generational systems that are in place in one foul swoop. We are a product of the world that we live in, and sometimes the systems in place really do impact how people can move forward in life. And it is important to take that into consideration instead of just blaming yourself for everything. So this frames hardship as like evidence of spiritual inadequacy, or maybe even spiritual abandonment. So God is like abandoning you because you aren't, doing the right thing, or you're sinning too much, or you're making too many mistakes, and so God has turned away from you, or maybe you've even turned away from God. You feel like you've turned away from God too much, and therefore He's punishing you or abandoning you, or the universe is not reading your energy. You're not putting out enough positive light and love and joy and peace. And so the universe is trying to teach you another lesson to like punish you. And so these bad outcomes or making a mistake become proof of your inner faultiness or wrongness or badness. Basically, you're kind of saying to yourself that God or the universe will be close when I'm better. I will be able to get what I need or get what I want if I just trust the universe more, if I just trust God more. You start policing then your inner thoughts, your inner dialogue, your feelings as like dangerous if they're not like high vibrational or connected to the universe or connected to God. And so you're really policing who you are and what's going on inside of your head, which then creates this anxiety and self-distrust. So the underlying kind of shame message here is, I caused this by being wrong inside. I'm failing God. I'm failing at life, and the universe is showing me that. So for people that struggle with this sort of inner dialogue, a self-compassionate thing to say to yourself is, my mindset influences my choices, yes, but it doesn't control everything that happens to me. The way I feel is okay, normal, and human, and I do not have to have everything figured out to have a beautiful life. I do not have to not feel a difficult emotion to have a happy or fulfilling or meaningful life that's connected to the universe or connected to God. My difficult emotions are valid. Moving on to the next shame-based quote is, if I could just figure out how to respond perfectly, the cycle wouldn't repeat. You see how all of these are kind of leaning into a similar dialogue or energy, if you will. There's a lot of needing to be perfect, or a lot of needing to be to control a situation, so that way, the repetition of negative emotions doesn't happen again. Nonetheless, let's dive into what this statement of, if I could just figure out how to respond perfectly, this cycle wouldn't repeat. What does it mean? It assumes one's flawless responses could control outcomes or prevent future failure or prevent abandonment or feelings of inadequacy. If you can just be perfect, then everything will be perfect. It feeds into the shame because if this cycle repeats, you conclude that you've responded wrong. You conclude that you did the wrong thing. And rather just acknowledging the complexity and your own humanness, you kind of just deem your imperfection as being flawed and being wrong, or whatever horrible words that you have towards yourself, which ultimately is actually just going to be the reason the cycle repeats. And so the underlying shame message here is, if I get hurt, it was my fault for not being perfect. A self-compassionate line to say to yourself if you struggle with this type of belief is, I am human, and it's okay not to know how to handle every situation. I'm allowed to make mistakes. It's okay. And the last critical little thought that we have is, I should be more grateful. This one I feel like I hear so frequently. It's like judging ourselves for not being high vibrational or grateful or happy. But nonetheless, it's like hitting yourself with a stick, with your own stick. You're just like, oh, I feel awful. Oh, be more grateful. Oh, be more grateful. And it's like, how can you signal to yourself to be more grateful, or, incentivize yourself to naturally actually just feel gratitude when you're being so cruel to yourself about not feeling it in the first place? So it signals that negative feelings are unacceptable. It usually intensifies the feelings as well. It implies that sadness, anger, anxiety are character flaws and not just completely normal human signals that you're experiencing something uncomfortable, or you're experiencing something new or different. You're not just experiencing this human normal life thing that you have. You're just judging yourself for not being perfect in a way. And so the underlying shame-based message here is, because I am not perfectly grateful or see the positive in everything, I don't deserve good things, and therefore I'm unworthy. If you struggle with this sort of thought, a compassionate way to speak to yourself is, gratitude can coexist with pain. I don't have to cancel one to prove the other. So humans are built to scan for threat and error. It is totally normal to want to evolve, to want to learn, to want to grow as a person. But when we are doing it from a self-critical and judgmental place, we're actually just feeding further into the self-criticism and judgmental mindsets that already exist inside of ourselves. And it's going to lead to more anxiety, more fear, higher chances of depression, higher chances of other psychological disorders, and really just make you miserable at the end of the day, because you're gonna feel like shit about yourself. You don't believe yourself to be worthy. You don't believe yourself to be good or capable or able to show up as yourself fully and completely without judgment from other people, when in actuality embracing your authenticity and actually really just learning what that is for you, experimenting with what that is for you. Because if you spend months, years, or your entire life in shame-based mindsets, it takes a long time to move through that space. And it's not just about understanding something psychologically. Although I laid out all of these things here today to really just emphasize how there are many different ways that self-criticism can seep into something that does feel like it's supposed to propel you forward, which is just a funny little paradox. I think the kind of toxic positivity movement has really made a lot of people lean into in life or through the internet and stuff. It's just, we're always seeing kind of these like, be more disciplined, be better, like work on yourself, like all of this stuff, without much compassion to just the pure humanity at which you are. Your humanity is like one of the most beautiful parts about you. The fact that you are going to experience all of the emotions that you are capable of experiencing, that a human is capable of experiencing for the entirety of your life is wild. And so to expect or to hope that if we fix or solve or change or create a system that does everything perfectly, then we will never feel the shame. We will never feel the anxiety again. We will never feel the depression again. And so we are doing things from the wrong lens when we are moving in that direction. It's about creating softness for yourself. It's about creating the inner dialogue that is actually encouraging. It's not about abandoning yourself. It's not about abandoning your goals or being submissive to life or not pursuing big dreams or big ideas or big things or a level of incredible achievement. Like if you want to be number one at pickleball, I don't know why I just said that. If you want to be number one in the world at pickleball, you're going to have to work hard to be number one at pickleball. And I don't actually think a sufficient way to get there is about hating yourself. I think a way to get there, which some people may argue with me in the comments or argue with me about in their own heads, is actually through being kind to yourself, showing up with respect for yourself, and realizing that you don't have to torture yourself to be the best at something or be amazing at something. You're actually allowed to enjoy your life while also pursuing a level of excellence. And the reality is, our bodies, our brains store information. And so when we are continually feeding or been in environments that feed that self-criticism, that feed that diminished worth and unlovability and judgment towards yourself, it's gonna hold you back in many, many, many ways. And so you may seek all of the information about self-growth and philosophy and spirituality and psychology, but not actually put in the practical things to grow past the negativity, self-criticism and such, which then just kind of treats healing as like an information database instead of like a felt experience in the body. And a lot of us are storing so much trauma in our body, and it's not to get, spiritual or anything, because actually there are so many spiritual frameworks from all around the world that really emphasize the quote-unquote body-mind connection. We're all one system. We are really all one system. And though our brains are up here and it forms this sense of self, and maybe if we lost a leg, it wouldn't of course it psychologically impacts us, but it's not like our selfhood is gone because of a limb being missing. So therefore we feel disconnected from our body and in some way, and trauma can really disconnect us from our body as well. When we experience dissociation, it is an out-of-body experience. And to reconnect with this entire being that we are, the places that we are storing trauma, so many psychological frameworks also really emphasize the fact that we need to have a felt experience and not just a knowledge of something to really impact our lives. So it's not just about like being like, oh, that's negative, or oh, I see that or understand this mechanism now, or I, get the psychology behind this disorder now. If we're not putting the work into reconnecting our body, we're going to have a negative feedback loop that continuates the self-criticism and self-judgment. And so learning to self-soothe and support yourself is one of the most beautiful, not even most, I always overemphasize things. It's just a really important and beautiful aspect of this process of learning to care for yourself more. Some people may not really like the term of self-love. Some people may not even like the term self-compassion. It could be viewed as, selfish. But inner love or inner compassion, inner kindness, inner acceptance, self-acceptance, these are all terms that are completely acceptable in the framework that I'm about to explain here, which typically is known as self-compassion. So again, we need to give ourselves a felt experience. And this also means not just changing the inner dialogue, but surrounding yourself with people and relationships that feed into, the beautiful parts of you that accept you and whatnot. Nonetheless, self-compassion. I love it. It's one of the most beautiful and important, I always say most, doesn't matter. One of the most endearing things to me. But it's just one of the things that really connected with me and really, really helped me in my process of learning and growing and feeling a lot more safe inside of my own body. And it does so for so many other people as well. And I think it really encompasses so many aspects, like all of the aspects at which you really need to feel better and live authentically. The first element, and all of them are equally important, and we all need a different mix of the three, but the first element is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a very difficult thing to actually define because it comes from a Buddhist origin, but at the same time, psychological frameworks have really adapted it and kind of created its own little thing with the word mindfulness as well. And so it's really difficult to kind of define it, to really encompass the spiritual tradition of it while also looking at the psychological framework of it as well. So there's not like a clear definition of what mindfulness is, but in the framework of self-compassion, it's about being aware of the emotion and experience that you are moving through. So naming the emotion that you're experiencing. You don't just feel like shit. You don't just feel bad. You don't just feel overwhelmed. Overwhelm's a good one, but you don't just feel like crap, like you actually have a feeling underneath of that. Maybe you feel anxious, but under that anxiety is fear. Under that fear is actually sadness because you're afraid of being abandoned, and that makes you really sad to that inner child that felt abandoned when you were growing up. There's layers to this. The feelings wheel is a great tool to help people name and identify emotions. I'll link a feelings wheel chart down in the description box for you or show notes. So the thing at which mindfulness is trying to combat combat when it comes to this inner critic is the rumination and over-identification that comes from self-criticism. So when we are over-identifying with these, really negative mindsets, really negative emotions as well, we are then ruminating about why we're feeling like this. Why does this keep happening to us? Like, why do I always end up in this situation? Like, why can't I figure it out? Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? We are ruminating and over-identifying with the mistakes that we're making, with the feelings that we're experiencing, with the situations that keep on happening. We are really feeding into the self-criticism through those mechanisms. And so mindfulness is intended to notice when we are doing such thing. And the quotes that I just read through, it's because I want you to be aware of the inner dialogue at which feeds into the self-criticism. And so all of the quotes that I read are going to help you better identify how you're speaking to yourself in a negative way, which often is hidden with some sort of pinch of motivation or some sort of pinch of logic. And that, I think, is what really gets people stuck, especially when they are interested in growth, especially when they are interested in healing and spirituality and psychological frameworks. We want to be a better person. We want to be more disciplined. We want to figure out our trauma. We want to grow into the person that is accepting and loving others and ourselves. And so we believe that a lot of these mindsets or frameworks are going to help us in the process or motivate us when the underlying tone is actually quite judgmental and self-critical. So becoming aware of those even small ways at which we criticize ourselves, because most of the time we can notice when we're like, I'm ugly and I'm a horrible person, or these more extreme versions of self-criticism we can notice. We're like, oh, well, that's cruel. Like, why would I say that to myself? But in the sneaky ways at which self-criticism comes up, we get quite good at the sneaky ways. And it's good to know the sneaky ways as well. And so moving then into common humanity, you notice, I think with all of them, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I believed in all of them, I mentioned your humanity. It's okay to make mistakes, I'm human. This sort of thing. So the thing that common humanity, the second element of self-compassion, is really trying to combat is the it's only me feeling. I'm the only one that doesn't have their shit figured out. I'm the only one that just keeps repeating this pattern. It's my fault. It's me. It's something that I'm doing. It's me. And the mindfulness, the over-identification, rumination, all of these things are interconnected. We need all three of them. But the common humanity is remembering that you are human. The me, the I, the you is a human being. You're bound to make mistakes. You're never going to have everything figured out. It's impossible. It's impossible for you not to feel anxiety ever again. It's impossible for you to not feel grief when something difficult happens. It's impossible for you not to feel the difficult emotions that are part of your human experience. Just like it's impossible for you to not feel shame when we are continually shaming ourselves or in environments or grew up in environments that incentivized shame. So your humanness is okay. You are far from alone in your experience as well. Although you have unique complexities of your individuality, the felt experience of anxiety, the felt experience of fear, the felt experience of pain or grief is human. And it's okay that you feel it, and it doesn't make you flawed, and it doesn't make you unlovable, and it doesn't make you imperfect, and it doesn't make you incapable of growth or anything of that nature. It actually helps you connect with other people through your felt experience, through relation. You need to relate to other people to have relationship. So expressing that vulnerable part of you, expressing these vulnerable parts of ourselves to each other, help grow intimacy, help grow connection. And one-on-one interactions with people may feel really overwhelming when you are in the beginning stages of healing, especially complex trauma of childhood trauma, but we can then seek parasocial relationships with people that have experienced similar things online, through books, through movies, or whatever. We can create some parasocial relationships to remind ourselves that this is a felt human experience. And then we can move into more one-on-one friendship type relationships and whatnot to help actually grow the true intimacy of being able to express yourself and have someone mirror that back to you. The last element of self-compassion is self-kindness. So at the end of every single self-critical little statement that I was making, I offered you a compassionate view or way to speak to yourself if you struggle with that particular mindset or mind frame. Self-kindness is meant to combat that inner critic and inner judgment with warm, welcoming, loving relation to oneself. It's not about over complimenting. It's not about being rambunctious in how you, flip from the criticism to more grounded, loving perspective of self. It's not about being like, well, I say I'm ugly all the time, so I must just shout at myself in the mirror, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. If that doesn't feel true to you, it's probably not going to really relate to you and help you ultimately. I mean, maybe if you do it enough, I don't know if there's been an experiment done with this, but maybe if you do it enough. But I think ultimately over time, it's actually just slowly shifting the perspectives and noticing when you are being critical with that mindfulness, remembering that you're not, some magical mystery monster that isn't human and being able to speak to yourself warmly and openly in all of that. You see, it's not about letting yourself off the hook in any way. These frameworks, or this framework, I should say, with these 3 elements is actually going to make you a more motivated, more open, more loving, more self-accepting person because you actually have space. There are many people in this world that will have a more than human persona, and so with the underlying beliefs of self-criticism and such, they can motivate themselves and push themselves to meet some extraordinary standard, but underlying it is probably some level of narcissistic personality disorder, which is actually just a psychological disorder which stems from a belief of unlovability and unworthiness. And so, of course, it's way more complex than just that, but at the same time, simplified terms here. However, the majority of us struggling with self-criticism and self-hatred and judgment are gonna feel self-loathing. We're gonna feel less than human. We're gonna have a less than human persona, which makes us just feel really bad about ourselves and really ramp up that self-criticism, make us unmotivated, make us unable to work a job functionally or have relationships that are functional. We're gonna feel drained all the time. We're gonna feel depressed. And that's not a way to live, you know? It's not a way to, it just sucks, man. Like, it really, really sucks to be in that space. And so self-compassion, implementing these 3 elements, being aware of how you speak to yourself, slowly shifting that, having relationships that make you remember you are not alone in your experience, and being able to speak to yourself kindly, openly, and warmly through the process. This is the end of today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm sending you the most love, and let me know if you like this backdrop. I've been kind of like changing things up and moving around my apartment. I don't know where I want to film my podcast. It also kind of feels nice to change things up sometimes. So let me know if you like this one down in the comments. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at FlavorfulJulia. I feel like I need to change my Instagram handle right now, but hey, we're one thing at a time in this life. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling. I'll see you again so very soon. Bye.